Objectives include explain why children with mental health diagnoses are considered a vulnerable population, describe solutions that can decrease disparities among children with mental health diagnoses, identify resources available in Lancaster County for children with mental health diagnoses. The vulnerable group I chose to talk about is children with mental health diagnoses. First off, we're just going to talk a little bit about what mental health is. It includes psychological, social, and emotional well-being, specifically related to children. Mental health is important at every stage of life. It goes from childhood up into adulthood. Factors that can affect mental health are biological trauma and abuse. Biological can include family history or genetics. Many people suffer from mental illness, including children. It's not just an adult problem. Children include anybody from the age of 18 and younger.
You kind of have a roadmap of like what it's going to be like, in your life. And all of that all of a sudden came into question.
I think I was pretty numb. I think my husband was kind of in denial.
We haven't told a lot of people about Jack because we're so worried about the stigma.
We don't socialize, and that's one thing that's kind of sad, that she's never had a birthday party at home. It just seemed like it was taking over our lives.
I was shooting heroin every day. I was doing it behind my mom's back, my family's back. That summer there should have been a dozen times where I should be dead. One of the things I really thought about when I was feeling suicidal and things were like, what would Owen do without a big sister? To see her cutting herself and just wanting to hurt herself, yeah, it's really hard to find the words to explain.
When I woke up that morning, I had a text message from him that said, "Hey, I love you." I texted him and said, "You are my boy. I love you too." I don't know if he ever got that text message or not. I remember just yelling, "No, no, 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 no." I didn't think anybody could live with that level of pain.
I think a lot of people feel that mental illnesses are something we make up in our minds. It's not necessarily that something's wrong with the child, it's that they're living a battle inside that is like so much bigger than anyone can imagine.
A lot of people don't know much about autism.
People think that they're dumb and that they can't do things other kids can. And he will.
I think that old saying, "it takes a village," rings true.
We all add value to this process, and as we all work together, that's when we can make the most powerful difference.
So that video just represents the issues and the stigma that children face with the mental health diagnosis. This is just another visual. It shows depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders, the percentage of them among children, and it shows the different age ranges. As you can see, the percentage increases with the age. Vulnerability and marginalization. Children's mental health is often overlooked. The focus when it comes to mental health is on adults because a lot of people think that children don't suffer from this. The diagnosis and treatment of psychiatric disorders among children has increased within recent decades. So the diagnoses are increasing, but the resources are remaining the same. A lot of the time, people think that it's a behavioral problem or that they're not raised right or they're just bad or they're lazy, they're acting out. A lot of the time, people don't believe that it's a real diagnosis. There are less healthcare resources available for children. They're often limited and there's a lot of wait lists. And children are also limited to what their parents can offer them, whether it's they want to offer them or they don't want to offer them resources, or they can't afford it sometimes. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Another visual, 1 in 6 children aged from 2 to 8 years has a mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. So that is a decent amount of children. It's a little less than 20%. Social justice. Social justice is the fair distribution of opportunities, wealth, and privileges. And we're going to relate that to children with mental health diagnoses. There are less resources available for children than there are for adults. And that includes inpatient and outpatient programs. Help is often determined by the parents. The child's not going to receive help if the parent is not for it or if they are not able to get them help. Like I said before, there's often misunderstanding, and the terms lazy, troubled, or bad are used to describe this population of children, and that's not the case. It's not always the parents' fault or the way they were raised or that they just don't want to listen. Access and equality of care. Health equity, the ability for individuals to receive proper health care without discrimination. And children with mental health diagnoses, they face a lot of discrimination when it comes to their own family, their peers, their teachers in the community, as well as healthcare professionals. Parental consent is a huge factor in the access for these children to receive the help that they need, as well as cost. Even if you do have insurance, it still can be very expensive for the parents to pay for. And then especially if you're uninsured, there are little amount of resources for mental health for children, whether it's inpatient or outpatient. And then even if you have money or insurance, or if you don't, it's still a lot to pay for. And like I said, there's very limited choices, and the choices that there are, a lot of the time, money is a huge factor. Some solutions can include school involvement, community involvement, parental education, and education for medical personnel. Biases, fears, and stereotypes negatively influence interactions with others, and sometimes people are unaware of it. So the important factor is that we need to educate the public, we need to educate the schools, we need to educate medical professionals and parents and students so that they can recognize these signs and symptoms so that it can be treated properly and not overlooked. Schools need to offer services and education for parents and students because education in schools are the common denominator among children. They either attend school or they do it virtually online or they have it in their homeschool curriculum. It needs to be included in that. And doctors and nurses and other medical professionals need to realize that this is a problem for children too. This is a real diagnosis. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not a thing. Some resources include the Pennsylvania Counseling Services, specifically Children's Services on West Orange Street in Lancaster, Lancaster Behavioral Health Hospital on Harrisburg Avenue, and Wellspan Philhaven. So to all of these resources, there are a lot of satellite locations, but these are the specific ones that are there for children. They offer outpatient and inpatient treatment, and Lancaster Behavioral Health specifically offers a free health assessment for these children to receive so that they can be recommended for inpatient or outpatient treatment. Also, any emergency room, if a child is taken there, they can receive a behavioral health assessment. 14 and older can receive an assessment without a parental consent, but they can't be transferred to an inpatient facility without parental consent. So these are just something to look at and to have in the back of your mind in case anyone you ever know or a patient that you come in contact with is in need of these services.